Good evening. My name is Clint Schroeder. I'm the president and executive publisher for the Hagedon Media and Hagedon newspaper groups. On behalf of the Joint Public Policy Committee representing the Coeur d'Alene Regional, Hayden, Post Falls, and Rathdrum Chambers of Commerce, in partnership with the Coeur d'Alene Post Falls Press, welcome to the 2024 Town Hall Candidate Forums. These forums provide a unique opportunity to connect with the candidates who seek to serve our community. Tonight's events will be hosted by two esteemed business leaders, Hilo Hancock, CEO of Beacon Clinic, and Tyrell Stevenson, Legislative Director of the Coeur d'Alene Tribe. This year, our moderators will sit down with each candidate to discuss several of the most pressing issues in Kootenai County. By meeting with our candidates one-on-one in a more casual environment, we aim to provide our voters with a better understanding of each candidate's point of view.
Well, good evening, everybody. Tonight we're going to hear a unique perspective from the three candidates that are running for Kootenai County Commissioner seat number 1. And our first candidate that we'll be speaking with is John Padula. And John's here with us tonight. And John, why don't you take a minute and introduce yourself and explain to everybody why you're running for this office and what you plan to accomplish.
Well, my name's John Padula. I'm running for County Commissioner seat 1. My desire to run for this office is, well, first of all, I don't have a desire to be in politics or be in this realm at all, but I've seen the need for it over the last several years. There's a polarization in our community and across this nation. And as a pastor in our community, my heart is to bring healing and bring unity back into Kootenai County. So my heart is to serve the people and get these offices back to public servants instead of just politicians. So frustrated with our political atmosphere in Kootenai County, to be honest with you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Yes, sir. Your first question tonight, John, and remember you have 2 minutes to respond to this, but the first question we have for you is name one thing the county commission could do to improve the quality of life here in Kootenai County, and explain how you would work to implement that.
Okay. I believe that growth is one of the things that is making it hard in Kootenai County. And I think that we need to work together with everybody. There's a lot of people who kind of lean one way or another when it comes to growth. There's people who just want to stop the growth. And then there's others who kind of have the idea that it's feast or famine. Hey, we can build and sell, let's do it. And I've been meeting with developers, realtors, and people who don't really like the growth at all and trying to come up with a solution to manage the growth and make sure that we're not burning up all of our resources. I think we need to look at the aquifer. I mean, we have places like Lakeland School District that are completely bursting at the seams, and there's just more growth. So I think we need to look at all of those things and come up with solutions as a community. So that's kind of my heart.
Okay, great. Thank you. The second question we have for you, John, again, you'll have 2 minutes for this, is in a contested primary election, members of the same party are squaring off against one another. And oftentimes voters wonder, well, they're both from the same party. What differences do they really have? And I think that's a fair question. And so if you were asked that question, what difference do you have as it relates to the other opponents that you're running against for this seat?
Well, we've had a really good relationship with all the candidates running for this seat. We've all met together. We've encouraged each other. I think we've had a very fair and honest race so far. As a pastor, I think I see things a little different. And plus, everybody knows my testimony. I was a criminal before I came to Christ 15 years ago. I worked with the criminal justice system for the last 15 years with the prosecutors, the attorneys, the judges, helping people in the jail system. So I think I have a different perspective when it comes to our criminal justice system. And I'm the only candidate who has experience on inside and outside of the criminal justice system, which may be a bad thing, but I can use it to help benefit the community. So I think I have a unique perspective when it comes to those things. I really like the guys that I'm running against, and I just tell everybody, pray, be informed. You're going to find people whose values line up with your values and some who may not. So I want to represent the community as a whole, or whether they have the same biblical worldview or worldview that I do or not. So that's my.
Very good. Well, that's a unique perspective and relationship, and certainly be commended. So, all right. Well, our final question is a bit more specific. And again, you'll have 2 minutes for this one, just as a reminder, John. But you mentioned growth as, something that you're concerned about, and there's no question that growth is on the top of mind for many here in Kootenai County. And it's an issue that seems to be gaining more attention. You hear about traffic congestion, you hear about subdivision zoning. If you're elected, how would you approach the solutions to growth? And again, how would you manage that in the long term for the future of the county?
I think I kind of answered that earlier. The way that I would address it is meeting with the community as a whole and looking at everybody's perspectives, taking everybody's ideas and seeing what we can do to make sure that nobody's being left out of the equation. If you lean this way, you're kind of neglecting this part of the population, and if you side with this part of the population, you're neglecting the others. So I think we work together as a community and find out the best way to manage that growth and look at 10-year, 20-year plans instead of just trying to catch up to where we currently are. As I said before, my heart is to represent everybody and get everybody's ideas and not just go in there and do what I think is right. So it's kind of my solution for everything, is to get community feedback and do what's best for everybody.
And just maybe digging into that a little bit further, one thing that I'm sure that you've seen through your campaign and certainly may see in your candidacy is finding a consensus isn't always the easiest thing to do. How do you approach finding a consensus so that you could kind of implement your vision on the solutions to growth?
Well, I have to take my personal view and make sure that we're going with not just the majority, but the majority that's best for everybody. And I know that no matter what decisions are made, every commissioner makes somebody mad. I've watched that over the last several years. Even if it's best for the community as a whole, somebody gets upset about it. So I think being able to have good conflict resolution is huge, and I do that every day as a pastor. So I think that we can make this work and we can be a benefit to the community.
Very good. Well, just have one final question for you, and it's really just an opportunity to close and tell the voters here in Kootenai County why they should vote for you. And we appreciate you joining us and give you that opportunity to give us your closing statement.
Okay. I think that if you vote for me and I'm elected, I think I'll be able to represent the community as a whole. I will be available for the community. I have for the last 15 years since I've came to Christ. I've given out my phone number to everybody, which is not always the best idea, but I believe that as a representative of the citizens that I need to be available, and that all people in these elected seats should be available for all of the community. Unfortunately, we've seen people get elected and it's almost like they become a celebrity. They're untouchable. You can't reach them. They don't answer questions. And I will not be that person. So I'll be a good representative of the people.
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate your time here and helping inform the voters about your candidacy and what you bring to this race.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we'll now hear from Dale Gibboney as we continue to get to know each candidate running for Kootenai County Commissioner Seat 1. Please introduce yourself and explain why you're running for this office.
Well, my name is Dale Gibboney, and I'm running because I have grandchildren here in Post Falls that are going to school. They're going to grow up and live here. I'd like to preserve this way of life that we have now. And the way things are going, it's not good with its out of control growth. So I want to try to do something to preserve the way of life here. North Idaho, not only for my grandchildren, but for all the people that live here. I'm endorsed by the Kootenai County Deputy Sheriff's Association, their FOP, the Coeur d'Alene Flyers out at the airport, and the Fernan Gun Club. Now, these people endorse me, and it's important to know that they've vetted me, they know me, they trust me, and that's why I have their endorsement, and none of the other candidates do. So,
Well, we'll get into some questions, and you've got 2 minutes for each question.
okay.
Name one thing the county commission could do to improve the quality of life in Kootenai County, and explain how you'd work to implement that.
Well, I think the number one thing is going to be the growth. The growth is pushing everything right now, and it's out of control. It's going to increase our taxes. It's going to make this a horrible place to live, because I've seen what happens with uncontrolled growth, and that needs to be taken care of. One of the ways to do it is we have to get the mayors and the city councils on the same page, because it seems like right now that the mayors, city councils, and the developers have never seen a piece of vacant land that they wouldn't like to put an apartment building on. And without the infrastructure for that, things will just deteriorate. It'll go downhill. The traffic will be uncontrollable, and it'll take you, what used to take you 15-minute drive will now be a 30-minute, 45-minute drive. So something needs to be done, and they have to realize that and stop this. And the growth has to start paying for itself.
You know, this is a primary election, and in primary election races, members of the same party are running against each other for the same seat, and people might think, well, maybe there's not a lot of difference between the candidates, but what are some differences between yourself as a candidate and your opponents?
Well, first of all, I know all the other candidates. I've had lunch with them, coffee with them. They're all good guys. I can't say anything bad about them, but I will criticize their policies, because that's going to be bad for the county, especially the former commissioner, Marc Eberlein, who's running. He decimated the county last time. He wants to cut spending, and he did that so bad that the sheriff's department was down to where they're barely able to function. And 6 years after he left office, they're still just now getting back up to where they should be. So it's important that you say you want to cut spending, but you look in the budget and where are you going to cut it? That is not the place to save money. It hurts the county. It costs the taxpayers millions of dollars when they cut the funding that much for the different departments, and that needs to stop. You need to function. You need to pay them the amount of money they need to run the department, and not a penny more, but what they need. That's important, because it costs the taxpayers millions of dollars in either lawsuits or in training when they lost all their deputies. It cost $3.5 million. So how much was saved by cutting the salaries of the employees at the sheriff's department?
Well, in the last question, you've already mentioned it a little bit. You know, growth in Kootenai County is a huge issue that people talk about a lot. You mentioned a little bit about it, but if elected, what would you do specifically? What are some of the things that you would try to do specifically to manage growth?
Well, the past board cut communications with the cities and the mayors and the council. This board, commissioners, has brought it back, and that needs to continue. We need to get the cities and the mayors and the county all on the same page on a comp plan on what they want to do. If we don't, we're not going to survive this. We'll turn this into a Seattle or a Southern California, and we need to make sure that they have a plan. What do they want this place to look like in 15 years from now? So there's going to be some things that the state legislators need to do also. This growth needs to start paying for itself, and they've got regulations now in the state that will not allow us to collect impact fees, that will not allow us to charge any other fees that could help relieve the taxpayer, because right now it's all going on to the property tax owner to pay these bills, and that's not right. So it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of cooperation, but if everybody wants to work toward the same objective, we can get it done.
All right, appreciate that. Well, just to close, what are some of your final thoughts in a minute or so that you'd like to leave with the voters of Kootenai County as to why they should vote for you?
Well, my experience, and if you've seen my my website, daleforcommissioner.com. It shows you some of my previous experience. I was a policeman in Los Angeles for 12 years. I flew helicopters there for 7 out of those 12 years. I was a chief pilot. I wrote the policy manual for training at the division. I managed the recurrent training for 35 of the line pilots. After I left law enforcement, I got into corporate aviation and ended up working for Time Warner in their flight department. Became the chief pilot there, where I managed 18 pilots and flight attendants. And I wrote the policy manual there for the employees at that Burbank base. And also we had a budget there for training that was, in today's dollars, about $1.2 million. So I managed that, and I think that gives me plenty of experience to be a county commissioner here.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming down and spending the time, and hopefully the voters will get to know you a little better.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Good evening, everyone. We're going to hear another perspective from one of the other 3 candidates running for the Kootenai County Commissioner Seat 1 tonight, and that candidate is Marc Eberlein. And Marc's with us here tonight. So, Marc, why don't you take 1 minute and introduce yourself and tell us why you're running for office?
How are our children going to be able to live in this wonderful community that we have? It's virtually impossible for them to even a rental house is horrifically expensive. So those are some of the concerns that I have. Property taxes are just getting way out of hand. It's the budgets are getting really huge, and I don't see the purpose or the reason why. Previously, when I was a commissioner, we had the biggest budget we had was $90 million and change, and that was only 6 years ago. And today it's trending upwards at I think it's actually 12%. And so, how much bigger is the budget going to get? Are we going to have to go into foregone taxes at some point in time? And that's a big bad thing. I don't know if you were familiar with foregone taxes, but it's disastrous.
Well, thank you. There's definitely a lot on your mind and a lot that you're running to address, and appreciate you articulating those. We have a few questions for you tonight. We have 3, and we're going to give you 2 minutes for each one of these questions. The first question is going to be, name one thing the county commission could do to improve the quality of life here in Kootenai County, and explain how you would work to implement that.
Quality of life in Kootenai County. They could make property taxes lower if they so chose. But the commissioners really don't have too much to do in the realm of it's private property. And so we don't, in this nation, we don't, unlike Russia or other countries, we don't force people to do one thing or another, and it's freedom of property rights and such like that.
Okay. The second question we have for you, Marc, is, and again, you're going to have 2 minutes for this one too, is, a lot of people, when there's a primary election, see that there's more than one candidate from the same party running for a certain position, and oftentimes wonder, well, what, they're from the same party, and we're, a pretty close community. How different can they really be? And so the question I think we have for you is, what sets you apart? What makes you different from the other candidates running for seat 1?
That's my strongest suit. I can hit the road running in day one. There's a lot of things that take place in budgets when you're creating them, and that's the primary function of a commissioner's task, and one that impacts the whole entire county for everything, for all the way from public safety to property taxes to airports, and there's a lot of things out there that can be impacted with it. And the knowledge that I've gained, Dan Green was we became friends. We used to be at each other's throats, and Dan Green was a genius when it came to budgeting, and I learned from him, and I learned a lot from Dan. And some people claim that he's not conservative, but he has his own way, and I was very happy to be able to work with him.
The last question we have for you is definitely something that is on the top of a lot of people's minds here in Kootenai County. It's the G word, growth. And, growth is something that seems to, you hear a lot about. People complain about traffic getting across town, housing issues, other things. But if you're elected, how will you approach growth and the issues around growth, and how do you see that being managed long term here in Kootenai County?
Well, growth is a function of private industry. If they want to build something, they build it if it's appropriate. We need to be sure to do it in certain manners so that people aren't hurt, and I mean financially or physically hurt. And if cities and counties don't provide certain necessities, people can get hurt. And one of the things that I find is when a development comes to be, even if it's a good development, I believe that they should be putting up the infrastructure, not only the sidewalks and that type of stuff, but if growth is going to continue, then all of a sudden, who's going to pay for the fire halls? Who's going to pay for the schools? Because there's, typically the developers will give a piece of dirt to somebody to build a school on, or a fire department, or whatever. Well, shouldn't that be part of the need of that project? And I think that the developers need to pick up the tab.
Okay. Well, that's the last of our kind of specific questions. And to wrap things up, Marc, you're going to have 1 minute to give us a closing statement. Any final thoughts you have about the race or your candidacy? So take 60 seconds and go ahead and give us your closing statement.
Well, I would say that we need to have responsible stewardship of public funds. That's a big one. We need to have public safety that's adequate. We have fiscal responsibility. There's things that we can do to preserve the property tax dollars and keep them down. And we need to, if like the foregone tax that's a horrible thing. And if somebody makes a big mistake on a project, on a building project or whatever it may be, all of a sudden foregone taxes could come into play. And I don't know what the last commissioners have done for foregone taxes. They can claw it back, or they can forgive the whole thing. And those have disastrous consequences with foregone taxes. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your responses and for your time and for helping inform the voters of Kootenai County about the issues you stand for and the things you'd like to accomplish if elected. So thanks, Marc.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. We're back again and meeting with another of the candidates running for Kootenai County Commissioner Seat 1. And tonight we're going to be talking with Bat Masterson. And Bat, why don't you take a minute and introduce yourself and tell us why you're running for the office of County Commissioner.
Okay. Well, I'm Bat Masterson, and I'm running for County Commissioner because I lived here all my life, and I'm not liking the way the county is headed. Looks to me like we have a lot of degradation of the county. We're not keeping up with things financially. There's no transparency within the office, very high lack of fiscal responsibility, and we're losing our old traditional Western lifestyle.
Okay. Well, thank you for explaining what your primary motivations are to the voters here, and you'll have a few more opportunities throughout the questions to continue to do that and help the voters get to know you. And the first question we have for you tonight, and again, you'll have 2 minutes to answer this, is name one thing that the county commission could do to improve the quality of life for the citizens of Kootenai County, and explain how you would work to implement that.
I think we got to expand our infrastructure. And when I say infrastructure, I don't only mean police, fire, schools, things like that. I also mean the road systems and things like that. As people move in here, we can't stop them from moving here, but we've got to be able to support them. And in order to support them, we have to have a stronger infrastructure. And I think that is a huge thing that the county commissioners could get more involved in. I was raised here, and I used to run farm tractor on Raspberry Prairie, and you could go 2 miles without turning your wheel. And now it's all houses and stuff, but yet we're still driving on the same old roads. Highway 41 is the only new road out in that area, and then they went and put stoplights every half mile on that, so it really didn't improve it much. So I think that's a big thing, is improve the infrastructure. And then, just as a side note, we've got to get a better handle on the budget system.
Great. The next question we have for you, and again, you'll have 2 minutes to respond to this. As you know, this is a primary election, and oftentimes in a primary election, people wonder, okay, we have more than one candidate from the same party running. What really sets them apart from one another? How are they different? And here we have a race with 4 individuals running in this primary election. What sets you apart from the other candidates that you're running against for seat 1?
Well, from just the time of getting to know these guys since we've been doing this campaign, there's a number of things. One thing is I have an educational background to be able to manage as a county commissioner and to help this county. I know this county well, and we have people that don't know the county well. I know the needs of the county. I know the needs of the kids and the programs that we have to have there. And I have a strong background for budget management. And that's another weak area with the other candidates, I feel like.
Great. The last question we have for you tonight, Bat, is a little more specific. And it revolves around something that's been top of mind for a lot of folks, and certainly those who have lived here a long time, and that's growth and managing growth. If elected, how would you approach growth, and how would you propose the long-term management of growth here in Kootenai County?
Well, I think we've got to have a long-range plan in place for our infrastructure. We can't decide today that we need 3 courtrooms today. We have got to plan for what we need down the road. We've got to know what we need in 10 years, or at least have an idea. A jail's a good example of that. The Justice Building is a good example of that. They're building the Justice Building and only putting 3 courtrooms in it, and that's what we need today. We've got to look into the future. We've got to do a lot more long-range planning. The same is true going back to the infrastructure in terms of the roads, what the police need, what the fire services need, what EMS needs, what the schools need. We can't just plan for today. We've got to have enough foresight to look forward and say, what is the future hold for us? Because it's going to keep growing. It's not going to stop. So we better plan for it.
And lastly, we're we're going to give you 60 seconds to tell the voters of Kootenai County, kind of one final time, what thoughts you have, why should they vote for you, and what you'd like to share with them in kind of a closing statement.
My professional life has led me down the path of being well prepared to be involved with the county commissioners and be elected as a county commissioner. I have a strong background in business and personnel management. I have a strong background in budget control. I know how to manage a lot of people. I also know how to reach consensus and become a team player. And I think that is something that we really lack on the Board of Commissioners as it is today. And I have not heard of any of the other commissioner candidates say that they have any kind of those backgrounds. And I think it's very important that you have them. You got to know what you're getting into. And I'm not saying that I know it all, because I sure don't, but I'm not afraid to ask questions neither. So, and I'd be the first one to say I need help. And I think my military background also contributes a lot to being a team player.
Very good. Well, we sure appreciate you taking the time this evening to sit down and answer some of these questions and give us more insight into your background, your qualifications, and the issues that are of concern to you, and helping inform the voters here in Kootenai County about who to vote for in this election. So thank you, Bat, and appreciate you.
Thank you. Very much. Thank you very much.
Thanks again to all the candidates who participated tonight. A very special thank you to our moderators, Hilo Hancock and Tyrell Stevenson, for their excellent questions and moderation. Your dedication to our community is admirable. I'd also like to thank the members of my team at the Hagedon Media Group and the Coeur d'Alene Press. Special thanks to the team at Quicksilver Studios. And thanks to all of you who took the time to watch. This year's 5 primary election town hall candidate forums allowed us to become more familiar with the 13 Kootenai County local race candidates. We sincerely thank those candidates who took the time to discuss what's important to county voters. We at the Hagedon Media Group take the job of providing voters with the most relevant candidate information very seriously. We hope this town hall forum has helped inform those still uncertain about whom they will cast that final vote for in the coming weeks. Along with these forums, you can find our comprehensive voter's guide at www.cdapress.com. Most importantly, don't forget to vote. It's one of the most important and powerful rights and responsibilities we have as Americans. Thank you, and good night.